Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discussing about this computer network. So in this session, we are majorly focusing about this what is computer network and what are the important parameters we are using the computer network. So while we discussing about this computer networks, so in the computer network generally, as we know, we having as a 7 layers or layer. So in the 7 layers, so which we discussing about each and every layer in this session. So here when discussing about this introduction to computer network, today we focusing about this our introduction to computer network, and later the sessions we much focusing about this what are the 7 layers are there, which is the physical layer or as data link layer, network layer, transport layer, application layer. Apart from this layer, we also discussing about is what is session layer and presentation layers as well. So in this chapter 1, we are majorly focusing about the purely introduction about the computer network. What is computer network and what is the applications of using the computer network. For tomorrow, when we discussing about this computer network, what is the major focusing about this application perspective scenario? If I learn about this subject, what are the major applications in the real-time world? So for this one, we also focusing about this network hardware section as well as network software section. So here, what are the key components which we are using to build a network formation? Whether going to this computer network formation, which we are using this hardware perspective as well as we are using this software perspective. At the same time, we are also focusing about this what is the reference model, which means while we designing about the computer network, how we are able to designing a 7 segment layer values only. What is the important parameters of this OSL layer as well as the TCP IP layer values only. So with help of these values, with help of these parameter values, we can able to communicate our information from one end to other end formation only. So there we are using this, we are using internet world as well as connection oriented communication, connectionless communications, all these things we discuss in this introduction of computer network. After this one, we are focusing about this 7 different layer, which is starting from this physical layer to till end of my application layer values only. So as we learn about this course, what is the major outcome of this course? So while discussing about this course outcomes, so while we understanding about this computer network, so here we focusing about this how we are able to use the computer network, whether go for using this any organization perspective or any influencing computer network perspective. So how we are able to development of network values only, because in the real time world we having as a n number of networks are there. So we are able to learn about this different types of network scenarios. After this one, we are much focusing about this what is my inter-network communication and what is my intra-network communication. So we have two things are there. One is intra-network communication, another one is inter-network communication. So one is a communication between inside the world and the outside the world, which means inside the communication and outside the world communication. So there we are able to analyzing about this different kind of networking communication structures. After this one, we are able to analyzing about this different networking topologies. So where we installing, where we enable, where we enhancing any kind of networking. So what are the network technologies are there? So while we develop network technologies, what are the issues we are facing? How we are able to contemporary or able to overcome these issues? We are able to analyzing this computer network. And after this one, we are able to analyzing them. So what is the organization structure requirement? What is the business application requirement? So that we are able to analyzing about this network architecture and the network technologies. So while we analyzing this one, while we designing about this network technologies and network architecture, we are able to using multiple protocols are there. We calling as TCP/IP protocols or HTTP protocols. We have n number of protocols are there. So we are able to identify the existing protocols and how we are able to accommodate to our networking architecture values only. With help of this one only, we can able to communicate the information from one end to another end. So we are able to establishing a computer network architecture path values only. So after all these things, we are able to designing our this effective protocols for a congestion free network values only. So these are the important where we analyzing the important topics in the computer network architecture, the computer network subject values only. So here the main thing while we come into introduction about this computer network, what is my computer network? What is the importance of this computer network? If I able to analyzing a computer network, how are able to analyzing that one? How are able to debug this computer network? So what is a computer network? It is a group of computer connected with each other either through a wide communication or through any kind of wireless communication. So in the wired communication, we are using as a many things are there. We on the wireless communication, we are using many kind of transmission lines are there. So what is the transmission lines? Here transmission lines we discussing about is any kind of coaxial cables, which means any kind of optical fiber cables, we calling as OFC cables, which is optical fiber cables, or is any kind of coaxial cables. All these things which we comes to this the wired communication. As well as while we coming to this wireless communication, we having as wired communication as well as we having as a wireless communication. Any kind of router modules or Wi-Fi modules, all this comes to this wireless communication, or any kind of antenna structure, we are using these kind of communication values only. So what is a computer network? Computer network is mainly we focusing about the sharing of information from one computer to a group of computer as a one-to-one communication or one-to-many communication. That communication can establishing between through the wires. The wires, which means the optical fiber cables or a connecting wire cables or coaxial cables, which means basically a physical communication is present between the some source and destination values. And so here based upon this one, we are able to interact with other network, which able to interact with each and other network. So which means we are able to communicate from one to one computer or one to many computers. Is a one to one communication or one to many communication. So ideally we are come to this computer network, which means we are sharing the information between the organization or outside the organization. We are able to sharing the information from one end to another end communication values only. But the main aim of the computer network, which means we are able to sharing of resources among various devices, because generally when we are using one-to-one communication or one-to-many communication, but in the network architecture, while we designing about this computer network, we are able to share the information from one end to the multiple ends are there. One transmitter we having is there, as well as we are able to share the information to n number of receivers. We have receiver 1, receiver 2, and we are able to receiver n. So one transmitter can able to transmit signals into this n number of channels, n number of receivers are there. So we are able to establishing the proper communication between them. So our computer network is main aim to sharing the resources between the various devices among all the devices. And in case of this computer network technology, there are several types of networks are there, whether which is go for simple to complex level, which means some networks are there. For example, if you go for this simplest communication, as we know, the simplest communication is only for this one-way transmission. Similarly, we having as a off duplex communication, which means a two-way transmission. Similarly, full duplex communication, this also comes to this a two-way transmission. But what is the difference over here? We'll go for the simplex transmission, the signal is transmitted only in one-way communication only, which means either the only one person can able to transmit signal at one time values only. Similarly, in the off duplex communication, here also the able to person can transmit only signal one time. It has to wait the receiver section. After then only can able to transmit to the other end. The response values is very bit low values only. But in the full duplex communication, a person can able to transmit signal and able to receive signal at a time values only. So the receiver time, the response time is very quicker. So while designing these kind of structure values only, we are facing a simple structure is there, as well as we are facing is a complex level structure is there. So while we designing about this computer technology, computer network architecture values only, we are able to analyze what kind of process we have to follow, whether go for this simplest communication values, whether go for this complex communication values. Because when we go for this simplex communication, either go for this the simplex channel values or the off duplex channel or the full duplex channel values. So what kind of methodology we are using that one? How we are able to design this architecture to sharing the information among all the users, among the various users. So based upon this understanding perspective, we are able to designing this structure. And while we design this computer architecture, so there are key components are there. So these we calling as a key component of my network architecture, while we calling as a components of my computer network. So we'll see this one. While designing this computer network architecture, so these are the main things are there. One is we calling as a national interface card and hub, different kind of switches, modems, routers, as well as we are using different kind of cables and connectors. So assume that one. a company can able to establish one. This is my company can able to establish a stronger communication path. So this we having as a server is there, and with help of this server we having as a we can able to communicate n number of clients over there. So while we are using this one server and n number of clients kind of things, so we are able to share the information, we are able to receive the information. So here the proper response should be happening over there. So for this, to get this response, to achieve this kind of response, we are able to establishing this is a key component. So first one is national interface card. So with help of this interface card, so we are able to proper the interfacing between my source end as well as my destination end. So with help of this one only, we can able to get the proper response between the communication between the two devices. One is server as well as my client devices. So with help of this communication card, we calling as a interface card. The proper interfacing between this card, we are able to share the information between the users and client servers. Similarly, hub. So every station, every a long distance communication or a short distance communication, we are fixing as a one kind of hub. So with help of this hub, through this hub only, my information is transmitted, my information is received, and we having as a n number of switches are there. Based upon this application perspective, based upon the requirement perspective. Here, what is the requirement here? Whether go for this two-way switch communication or four-way switch communication. So based upon this number of clients over there, a number of users are using the respective server, we are able to fix the respective switches values only, because it should be impacting the my networking speed kind of structure values only, the run rate structure values only. And we are using this modem values or the router values. So here, when we go for this any kind of wireless communication structure, so we focusing about this what is my router capacity values. Based upon this router values or modem values, based upon how much amount of signal is transmitted, we'll go for this 2.5 gigahertz signal, or else we go for this 5 gigahertz signal values only. So based upon these values, we can able to fix our router architecture values only, the structure of my router values only. And here also we are mainly focusing about this the cables and connector. Whether go for this wide communication or whether go for this wireless communication also, we are focusing about this what kind of cables we are using, which means what kind of a physical kind of cable, what kind of a transmission cables we are using. So that we are focusing about that one, and in the cables perspective, and in the connectors also, how we are able to make the proper connection, because we go for this connectors, we go for this RS-232 cables or else some other kind of structure values only, because we are using the different kind of protocols are there between this client and server model. So here what is my proper connection between these two devices? So based upon that one, we can able to share the information values only. So that is the reason the cables and connectors also plays a key role in while establishing the complete network architecture values only. So these are the important parameters of the major components of my complete networks. And so here at the same time, we also focusing about this what is the uses of my complete network, which we able to learn about this complete network, what is the major use, where we can able to using in our real-time application values. So in the real-time applications, so these are the major uses of their major functionality is there. The first one is resource sharing. So while sharing resource information, our main aim, our main goal to share the information between the various devices. So if having as a one server is there, it can able to accommodate to n number of client values with proper information without loss of information. So we can able to share our resources to n number of clients. For example, we having this huge database is there. For example, www.google.com is there. So here we having as a huge database is there. So when I entering into this particular this World Wide Web communication, I can able to access anywhere in the world with help of this World Wide Web communication, which we calling as www.com. So once this server, which means I'm able to mentioning as a proper database management, proper database structure values only, we can able to share our proper information. We can able to share the resources to n number of clients. So proper information between without loss of information between the source and client values only. At the same time, we also focusing about this client and server model. So while we discussing about this model architecture, in the next session we also focusing about this network architecture, that they will discussing about this the client and server model as well. So what is client and server model? In the client and server model, so as we discussing about this, one server is there, but n number of clients are there. So while the sharing information between this n number of clients, how the information is transmitted, how we are able to analyzing the client response values only. So because one server is there, so but we can able to share information to n number of user values only. How we are able to share the information values, how we are able to accommodate the response between this client to server model and this client to this server model, because our server can able to get multiple response are there. How we are able to accommodate the response, how we are able to give the faster response to my client values only. So there we are getting this client and server values only. And we'll go for this communication system. In the communication system, we having this n number of types are there, where you go for this short range communication, we go for this long range communication, whether we go for this wireless communication or wide communication, what kind of medium we are using that one, whether in this wide medium, whether we are in this wireless communication medium, how we are able to transmit the information values only. So based upon the medium also, we are able to designing about this my complete network architecture. And we're coming to this e-commerce. In the nowadays, the real-time world application, the e-commerce is major focusing about that one. Whether go for this e-paper kind of things, or whether go for this any kind of e-commerce website like Amazon, Flipkart, all these things comes to this e-commerce structure values only. While we establishing this e-commerce kind of structure, what kind of topologies we follow, what kind of architecture we follow, and how we are able to interfacing this, how we are able to integrate to our complete network architecture. We are able to analyzing in this subject values only. So that is a major uses of my compute network. And apart from this one, what is the features of compute network? In the features of compute network, we are able to focusing about this communication speed, file sharing, backup and rollback, hardware and software sharing, security perspective, scalability and reliability. So while we discussing about this communication speed, how much amount of speed rate is there? If I will transmit signal, how much amount of transfer rate is there? We calling as the bit error rate analysis values and SNR values, signal to noise ratio values. So how much amount of bits per error rate values is there? How much amount of bits are transmitted particular second values only? So how much amount of communication speed is there? If I will transmit signal towards longer distance, it will take more than 1 hour time. It's useless for me. So how much amount of transfer rate is there? How much amount of quick transfer of information between the source and destination value is there? So that we majorly focusing about this communication speed values only. And apart from this one, what is my file sharing values? How much amount of file sharing you can able to do that one? What kind of communication speed and how much amount of file sharing is happening? Whether go for this PDF file or EMPV file, whatever is file, what kind of format we are using that one? How much amount of faster I am able to share the information? What kind of structure we are able to follow for file sharing the information? And few scenarios we are using this backup and rollback structure values only. What kind of rollback we are using that one? However, if I go for this any kind of wrong scenarios, how we are able to back up, or we go for the, how to be able to roll back my sharing the information values. We are able to focusing that values as well. And at the same time, we also focusing about this hardware and software sharing. Nowadays world, we focusing about this the Internet of Things communication world only. So that we are focusing about how we are able to sharing the hardware structure values and the software structure values. We focusing that as well. And at the same time, the other important parameter is security. So we calling it as the cyber security values, because in the world while sharing information is the advantages there as well as the few disadvantages are there because of this lack of security world. So we are focusing about this the cyber security values as well. How much amount of stronger of my server values is that how we are able to establish a firewall protection of my cyber security values, the security given to my server values. And what is the scalability and reliability? How we are able to reliable of my things? How much amount of reliable of my information values? That we focusing about this the compute network. This is the major features of our compute network. So in this session, we are majorly focusing about this what is a compute network, which means what is the introduction of compute network and what is the key components of hardware and software components in compute network, and what is the uses and features of compute network. So these are the important topics which we discuss in today's session. In the upcoming session, we discussing about this network architecture. So in the network architecture, while we focusing about this, how we are able to give in the network architecture, how we are able to focusing design a complete network architecture to while establishing the information between the two or more receivers. Thank you.